Hello everybody and welcome to Chapter 15, Section 6, Advanced Notes. This is solving radical equations, so this means equations that have roots inside of them. Let's look at problem number 1. Remember in class we talked about the steps to solving these. If you need those, they are listed in the basic video. We're just going to go ahead and charge ahead. The first step is to get the root by itself, so this 2 cannot stay here. So I am going to add the 2 over here. He's not part of the root, so he can't be on the left side with the root. Now I will have the cubic root of x squared plus 7x, and on the other side, a 2. Next step is we get rid of the root. This is a cubic root, so we get rid of a cubic root by cubing both sides. The cube and the cubed root will cancel each other out, and we'll be left with x squared plus 7x. But on the other side, we've got to cube that 2, so 2 times 2 times 2, or 8. Now we can solve this like we would an old equation that we saw a chapter or 2 ago. Since I have an x squared, I'm going to set it equal to 0, so I'm going to minus the 8 over. And then I'm going to factor. Minus tells me different signs. Let's see, to get a positive 7, I'm going to need plus 8 minus 1. And then set each of our factors equal to 0. And so this one is going to give me negative 8, and this one is going to give me a positive 1. Now, in a square root equation, we would have to check both of these, but because this one is a cubic root, we know that we don't have to check them. These are both going to work. Now, if you wanted to, of course, you could check them, but you don't have to on the cubic roots. Okie doke, let's look at number 2. You will not see anything like number 2 or number 3 in your homework. You will not see anything like these on a test unless it was a bonus question, because these are a little bit harder. When we have 2 square roots in an equation and other stuff like that 1 sitting over there, it can make things a bit challenging. So I'm going to walk you through how we would do this one. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get the square root that is the ugliest by itself. And so my first job is to get this square root on one side and everything else on the other. Because he's negative though, I think what I want to do is I want to take this square root and move it over here, and then take the 1 and move him over there. I think that will make things nicer for me. So I will have the square root of x, and I'm going to minus the 1 over. But then I'm going to add the big root to the other side. So it'll look like that. And now I'm going to square both sides, just like we would normally. Now, good things are going to happen on the right. This square and this root are going to cancel out. But on the left, when we square this guy, it means the square root of x minus 1 times the square root of x minus 1, and we're going to have to FOIL. Now this side over here is just 2x minus 14, so that's good news. So let's try FOILing this. The square root of x times the square root of x is the square root of x squared, which is pretty awesome. Outside, inside, I'm going to get negative root x and negative root x, and last is plus 1. So let's see what we can do here. The square root of x squared is just a regular x. And here I've got negative 2 root x's. I could combine those like terms. So you see, squaring both sides got rid of a lot of the roots, but I still have this little root that's causing me problems. So what we do is we actually start back at the beginning of our steps where we isolate the root. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to minus this x over, and I'm going to minus this 1 over, so that I have the root by itself on the left side. Now that negative 2 is a bit problematic. I don't want to divide by negative 2 because it's going to make a hot mess on the other side. And I can do this, I just have to be careful when I square both sides. It's going to be fine, it's just going to cause a little issue over here. Because square will cancel the square root, but it doesn't go away when I'm talking about that guy. I have to square everything in those parentheses. So negative 2 squared would be a positive 4, and when I square the root of x, I get regular x. So you have to square all those parts. Then over here, I'm going to have to FOIL this. So this will be x squared minus 15x minus 15x plus 225. This is an x squared problem, so this is set it equal to 0, factor, and so on. So I'm going to minus the 4x. We're going to have to come over here. I'm running out of room. That's going to give me 0 equals x squared, let's see, minus 34x plus 225. Then it's time to factor. I know they're both minuses. Let's see, multiplying to 225 but adding to 34. How about 25 times 9? I think that would do it. So then we set each of those equal to 0. And I would get x is 25 and or 9. Now, that was a lot. But basically what we did was, because we had multiple roots and other stuff going on, I got the nastiest root by itself, then I squared both sides. That fixed a lot of my problems in here, but I still had this root. So then I tried to get this root by itself and squared both sides. That did get rid of the rest of the roots to where I could go ahead and solve like I normally would. One last thing, you do have to check this because it's a square root, and in fact when you check it you'll see this guy doesn't work and 9 is the only answer. If you need some practice on checking, I do that in the basic video, but basically you're just putting 25 back in the spot for this x and for this x and see if this side equals 1. Then you put 9 in here, you put 9 in here, and see if this side equals the 1 as well. Let's do one more of those really hard ones. So we've got 2 roots, plus I've got this 2 out here that's not under a root, so that's what's going to make this really hard. First things first, try and get a root by itself. So I think if I just add this root x minus 1 to the other side, that would leave me with the square root of x plus 1 on this side, and then 2 plus the root of x minus 1 on that side. All right, let's square both sides. So I'm going to square this side. Remember, you have to do the whole side. You can't just do little pieces when there's plus signs in there. So this square and square root would cancel out, and I'll be left with x plus 1 on the left. That's pretty awesome. The problem is here. I really have, I think I should write this out, 2 plus root x minus 1 and 2 plus root x minus 1. And we have to FOIL this. So this guy's the nice one. We're going to leave him alone. So 2 times 2, I got that. That's 4. 2 times the root. So 2 times the root plus 2 times the root plus the root times the root. Well, the root times the root might be nice to write it as the root squared, right? Anything times itself is squared, which is handy because this square will cancel this root. It's like if you took 5 times 5 and then did the square root. You're back where you started. Okay, let's see what we got here. X plus 1. I've got 4. These two are, although crazy, they are like roots, so plus 4 of those roots. And this is now just plus a regular x minus a regular 1. Okay, I think I've done all I can do on this simplifying other than maybe putting that 4 and negative 1 together. But I notice I still have a root. So my next job is to get that root by itself. So I'm going to minus the 4. I'm going to minus the x. And I'm going to add the 1 to get it to where the roots is by itself as I can. So that's going to leave me with, let's see, negative 2. Because the x's will cancel, and then 4 root x minus 1. Okay, I've done as best as I could to get the root by itself. Time to go ahead and square both sides again. Now be careful when you square both sides. Let's think this through. The square of negative 2 is 4. When I square this, I have to square the 4, and it's 4 times, the root's going to go away, and I'll have x minus 1. So let's bring this up over here. So now I can distribute the 16 and solve for x. I'm going to add 16 over and then divide by 16. Just going to have to reduce that to 5 over 4. And then we have to check this thing. So now we've got to put 5/4 back in here for x, back in here for x. I might grab a calculator and put it in as a decimal. This would be 1.25. Can you do 5 divided by 4 and get the decimal? I think that would help. But the reality is, actually, this doesn't check, and your answer is no solution. Or you can write it like this. And you know what? I kind of knew that was going to happen. In fact, I knew it was going to happen right about here. Because this line right here, I am saying 4 times something under the root that I do the square root of is going to equal negative 2. The square root of something is always going to be positive. And a positive whatever times 4 is always going to be positive. So this will never equal a negative 2. When I squared both sides, I kind of messed that up by squaring a negative 2 and making a positive 4. And there's no way around that other than just checking to make sure that we didn't cause a problem. And that's just the way it is. But I could have probably stopped right here. Now, you would be careful, because if this 4 had been a negative 4, then I would have an answer that probably worked. Because negative 4 times the answer to a square root can be and will be negative. But positive 4 times the answer to a root is all going to be positive, so this would never happen, and I know it was a solution. The good news is, as long as you follow the math and check it, you're going to find out either way. I know